Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 Big 12 Conference Predictions Recap. As always, guys, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our brand new website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and our exclusive expert picks. And as always, make sure to follow us on social media as well, over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So the Big 12 Conference, guys, is going to be one of the most intriguing conferences for me to watch in 2020 because it is a wide open conference. Every single team, even Kansas, even though we don't predict them to do too well, to me has a shot this season within the Big 12. And we're going to break down our projected records for these teams and kind of share our thoughts on their records and who we have winning the Big 12. But of course, I want you all to remember that these records do not reflect any sort of COVID cancellations. And we know a couple of these teams did have non-conference games scheduled against Big 10 or Pac-12 opponents, which as of this filming are the only two conferences that have canceled their non-conference games. But we went ahead and predicted those games because we did it for all the other conferences. We might as well do it for the Big 12. So those records remain the same here. And really at the end of the day, the only thing that might matter is conference records. And of course we had those in parentheses up here on our whiteboard. So let's break down our Big 12 conference recap, and we'll start with the top two teams, and that's Oklahoma and Iowa State. Guys, we have Iowa State making the Big 12 championship game in 2020, and I know that's going to come as a surprise to people. A lot of people might think it should have been Oklahoma State, maybe even Texas, but I like this Cyclones team. Rather, I love this Cyclones team going into 2020. Now, we'll start with Oklahoma here. We've got the Sooners going 11-1, 8-1 in conference play. Who was their lone loss to? It's to Iowa State. This is an Oklahoma team, guys, that for the first time under Lincoln Riley is not going to benefit from a veteran quarterback. You know, it was Baker Mayfield, then it was Kyler Murray, then it was Jalen Hurts. They don't have a veteran QB. They don't have a transfer QB to come fill in this season for the Sooners. So it's going to be Spencer Rattler, more than likely. And Rattler has to be able to build chemistry with a very depleted core of wide receivers, guys. They've been just ravaged by injuries in that wide receiver core. They lose their star in C.D. Lamb. So you can't help but wonder, will the Oklahoma offense, at least statistically, take a little bit of a step back? So that's going to be the kind of the big storyline to watch out for. But we still have them on top of the Big 12 right now. I love the defense led by Alex Grinch. Very, very experienced across the board on that defense for Oklahoma. They were a top 50 unit last year despite getting annihilated by LSU in the college football playoff. So Oklahoma right now still at the top of the Big 12 standings in our eyes. But right below them is Iowa State, who we have going 9-3 and 7-2 in conference play, which would be a great mark for Matt Campbell and his Cyclones. Guys, Iowa State, like we said, they're the real deal. They're led by one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, and as I've said repeatedly, a guy that I have in my top 10, as in quarterbacks in the country, in Brock Purdy. So Purdy is back, and if he stays healthy, the Cyclones will thrive. The only things that they kind of need to watch out for, got to look at that offensive line a little bit, got to bolster up the wide receivers a little bit, but he still has enough playmakers to make this offense lethal. And like Oklahoma, I really like Iowa State's defense. They returned 9 starters on that side of the ball, just like the Sooners. And I'm in love with that secondary and that defensive line as well. And we know, guys, that in the offensive-led Big 12, if you have just a little bit of a defense, a mediocre defense, you could be in store for a good season. Because if you can stop the other team and you have a good offense of your own, you're going to be able to win a lot of games. Big 12 is always criticized for not having any sort of defense, but if you are able to have just a little bit, you are automatically propelled into the top half of the Big 12 conference. We've got Iowa State at 9-3, 7-2. Do not sleep on the Cyclones this year. Right below them, we've got Oklahoma State, another team that I love, but a team that we have losing 3 conference games instead of 2. Because, guys, we got Oklahoma State beating Iowa State here. So they would own that tiebreaker over the Cyclones. So if they don't slip up to someone else on our projected records, once again, we're not going to break down every game for these 10 teams. If you want extra analysis on these teams, make sure to check out our Big 12 playlist or just the individual videos for each of the 10 Big 12 programs. But Oklahoma State here, same record as Iowa State, just one less game in conference play. That's ultimately going to be the factor, the deciding factor, in whether or not they get into the Big 12 championship or not. So the margin of error is very slim for both Iowa State and Oklahoma State, even Texas, for making that second spot in the Big 12 championship game. But we like the Cyclones a little bit more. Oklahoma State, though, still in store for a very solid season with one of the best trios in college football in Spencer Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, and Tylan Wallace. Right below Oklahoma State is Texas. And you look at Texas, guys, we said it in our prediction video for them. We'll say it again. They're still not back. They're just not there yet. And I don't know what it's going to take for them to do it, because Texas has had the talent, guys, and Tom Herman hasn't been able to get them there. They won the Sugar Bowl a few years ago, finished the regular season at 7-5 last year. So technically, Texas fans should be happy with this, because this is a one-game improvement from their record last year. They've got a great quarterback in Sam Ehlinger. They've got 9 returning on defense with a brand new defensive coordinator in Chris Ash. We've only got them losing 3 conference games. But that's not going to please the Texas faithful. They want to win 9 games, 10 games. They want to contend for a Big 12 title. Now, I just don't see this being the year for them. Again, in a very wide open and very, very competitive Big 12. Because every single team is going to be competitive this year. And any team, including Oklahoma, could lose to any given team on any given Saturday within this Big 12 conference. So the Longhorns and Tom Herman in for an 8-4 season, but if the pattern continues of fantastic postseason play, the Longhorns would clinch a 9-win season, and I would not be disappointed with that. And then rounding out our top 5 of the Big 12, we've kind of broken it up here. This is your top half of the Big 12, and then you obviously see a significant gap between Baylor and TCU. But the top 5 rounds out with the Bears down in Waco, going 8-4 just like Texas, but finishing with one less conference win, sitting at 5-4 in conference play. Baylor dealing with a brand new head coach themselves in Dave Aranda. We know the offense is going to be pretty solid. I love Charlie Brewer, one of the best quarterbacks in that conference. He's got a great running back duo in Tristan Ebner and John Lovett. Forget about Denzel Mims leaving. I think the passing game is going to be just fine. It's the defense, to me, that's the only cause of concern. But, an 8-4 season with a chance at 9, I think is an unbelievable record for a first-year head coach in Dave Aranda, considering Baylor went 11-3 last year and was 1 win away from making the college football playoff. So you do that and you take a step back and still win 8 games, that's pretty good. And really that sets the benchmark for Baylor football, and really the only way to go is up in the future for Dave Aranda and his squad. So Baylor, I think, still in store for a very solid year despite losing so much, both from their coaching staff and player-wise. So that rounds out our top 5. We've said it before and we'll say it again. The Big 12 comes down to these 5 teams. They are the top 5 teams, all of which that can contend for a spot in the Big 12 championship game. And then you've got your bottom 5 here that guys like TCU and Kansas State are sleepers that could contend and finish in the top 5 here. We just don't have them at that point quite yet. We've got TCU going 6-6, taking a step forward again under Gary Patterson. They went 5-7 last year, which was very, very disappointing. I think a lot of people hated to see TCU with that 5-7 record. I know a lot of people were heartbroken as TCU had 6 losses by 1 possession. So they just win a couple of those games and they go bowling. But this year, TCU returns a good quarterback in Max Duggan, very dangerous dual threat QB. We've mentioned how well Patterson's done in recruiting. The biggest recruit, obviously, getting Zach Evans, the 5-star running back. And then, of course, maybe getting the 5-star transfer linebacker in Marcel Brooks. He committed to TCU. Will he be eligible? As of this time, that is still up in the air. But we think this TCU team is still good enough to get to the postseason. And if they have grown enough, if they are able to win those close games, could maybe not win just 6 games, but could contend for the top 5 spot and win 7 or 8. They're just that good, in my opinion. We don't have them to the point where they used to be, 10, 11 wins in a season. They're still a dangerous team to watch out for. We say it again and again and again. Never underestimate Gary Patterson. Right below TCU, we've got Kansas State, 6-6 as well, 3-6 in conference play. Now that's going to be disappointing as well, especially with the way that we have Kansas State starting the season. We know the Wildcats won 8 games last year in year 1 under Chris Kleiman. So a lot of people would say they won 8 games in year 1. In year 2, you have them taking a step back and just barely making a bowl game. First off, look at their schedule. Obviously, the first half is much more favorable than the second part of the schedule. But also look at their roster. Outside of Skylar Thompson, they don't have much on offense. The defense is going to have to carry this team. And I have a feeling that their defense is going to get worn down quite a bit in 2020 when their offense is unable to move the ball. They didn't have a great offense last year when they won 8 games. They're certainly going to take a step back on that side of the ball, I believe, in 2020. But nonetheless, Chris Kleiman in year 2 makes 2 straight bowl games. What more can you ask for if you're a fan in Manhattan? So the Wildcats still going bowling here. And Texas Tech, another brand new head coach in Matt Wells, also entering his second year in the Big 12, his second year with the Red Raiders. We have them breaking through to the postseason, going 6-6, 3-6 in conference play. The Red Raiders are dangerous offensively, guys, and I look at their defense. They return 8 starters, guys, and their defense is going to be the difference maker here. They're going to be the difference maker in whether or not they finish with 5 wins or 6 wins, because I certainly don't think they're only going to finish with 4 like they did last year. This Texas Tech team is moving in the right direction. As long as Alan Bowman stays healthy, and as long as the defense improves just a little bit, they'll be able to get over the hump. They had a lot of one-possession losses last year, too. They'll be able to snag a few of those this year. I think Matt Wells and his squad have the talent to get to the postseason. Keep in mind, they've only been to 3 bowl games since 2013. And then rounding out the Big 12, of course, West Virginia at 5-7, just missing out on the postseason here. Another one of those brand new head coaches we had last year within the Big 12, in Neil Brown, coming over from Troy. West Virginia went 5-7 last year as well. The biggest thing for them is their offense. I think their defense is decent. Nothing to brag about, nothing to get too excited about, but by Big 12 standards, it's decent. It's just their offense. Can they turn a corner? They seemed to kind of do that towards the end of last season, finally settling on Jarrett Doege as quarterback. And if he can continue that success that he had in those final 3 games, maybe West Virginia pulls off an upset and gets to 6 wins. But I think the bit of inconsistency on offense, because I don't think Doege plays the way he did all season long this year. I don't think he's able to play that consistent all year round. And I don't think the defense is going to be able to carry this team all the way through. I think they slip up a few times, which keeps them out of the postseason. But like we've said with Texas Tech, like we've said with Kansas State, we do believe that West Virginia is trending in the right direction. So Mountaineer fans, hang in there. You're going bowling next year. I can promise you that. And then finally, rounding out the Big 12 is, of course, Kansas going 2-10. Winless in conference play. I know that's going to come as a surprise to some, considering they did defeat Texas Tech in 2019. But Kansas loses a lot of people from that 3-9 squad last year. A 3-9 record that was good enough to tie their best mark of the decade. And again, that's nothing to really brag about. I love Les Miles. I love what he's doing there. He's instilling a culture and a system there that just takes time. We've said it over and over again that this is a very ambitious and difficult rebuilding project in Lawrence. You just got to give the Mad Hatter some time. And I think by year 3, next year, you're going to see Kansas winning more conference games, being more competitive, and maybe even breaking through to a bowl game. But I think this year they take a step back. They lost so much, lose their quarterback, lose so much defensively. I just think they're going to be in for a world of hurt in 2020. So that's kind of your brief, I say brief, it was kind of long, but brief breakdown for the Big 12 and our records for each of these 10 teams. Once again, you can get game-by-game analysis for every single one of these teams on our Big 12 playlist, or just scrolling through and finding our individual videos for each team. It will be much deeper in depth. It'll be every single game. And of course, again, COVID, non-conference factors, none of that playing a role here in these projected records. So having said all that, guys, Big 12, of course, does not have divisions, only 10 teams. So it's just the top 2 teams in the standings that meet in the Big 12 championship game, and we've got Oklahoma and Iowa State. Oklahoma, not a surprise. Like we said, Iowa State may be a surprise to some, maybe not to others, if you do know enough about Cyclones football. And this is obviously a game that reminds me a lot of the 2018 Big 12 championship game, because Oklahoma played Texas in the regular season and fell to the Longhorns, but then got their revenge over Texas in the Big 12 championship game. And I think that's exactly what happens here. I think Oklahoma does lose on the road to Iowa State in the regular season, but I believe the Sooners bounce back in the Big 12 championship game and take down Iowa State in a game that is just as close as it was in the regular season. It's going to be an absolute thriller down in Arlington. I can guarantee you that. Iowa State has the pieces to pull off the upset. They've already done it once, but as we all know, it is very difficult to beat the same team twice in a single season. I think Lincoln Riley and his team, his staff, make enough adjustments to shut down Brock Purdy in this passing attack and squeak by Iowa State. The question is, will that be enough to propel Oklahoma back into the college football playoff for the 4th straight year? So guys, there you have it. Our projected Big 12 conference standings, our projected Big 12 records for every single team within the conference. And of course, we have the Oklahoma Sooners winning the Big 12 for the 6th year in a row. Can Lincoln Riley do it? Or will the Cyclones dethrone them? Will they even face the Cyclones in the Big 12 championship? We want to hear from you guys. Leave your Big 12 conference predictions below in the comments. Always ready to discuss some college football as we inch closer and closer to the season. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below. Visit our new website, thegridironexpert.com. Follow us on social media over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we will see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.